Funny thing about legends, they always leave out the part where your hands shake and your gut knots up so bad you think you might lose your breakfast right there in the dirt. Folks like to remember the gunshots, the shouting, the dust flying, but what sticks with me most are the moments after. The blood pounding in your ears, and that quiet, guilty relief when you realize you're still standing. They say every man's got a reckoning waiting on the horizon. Mine rode in on the tail end of a blood-red sunset, on a day when the whole damn town of Silver Bluff seemed determined to mind its own business. Except for me. That was the night I bought a life with a bag of coins, and nothing's ever weighed heavier in my palm since. I suppose I should start at the beginning, though truth is, beginnings and endings blur out here. Anyway, I was just patching a fence behind the saloon when I saw her. Cassie Doyle, tied to a splintered post like she was some half-wild animal instead of a girl. 18, maybe, though hardship has a way of shaving years off your hope and adding them to your bones. Her dress was torn, face streaked with dirt, but her eyes, well, they'd gone flat, like pond water before a storm. Nobody helped. A few spat. One or two laughed. I recognized her stepfather, Wade Fenwick, meaner than a rattler and twice as desperate, always in debt to someone or something. He was roaring drunk, waving a tin cup and bragging loud to nobody in particular. "She stays tied up till my luck comes back, or somebody settles my score." The score, as I heard, was near $100, no small change in those days, but it was the way he said it, like Cassie was nothing but a dog he'd lost money on. I'd seen ugly things in my time, but this twisted something in me I'd tried hard to bury. I asked around, quiet-like, what was going on. Folks just shrugged. "Ain't our business, Jonah." Well, I reckon it was. Maybe because I'd lost enough already. Maybe because sometimes a man needs to stand between a girl and a world gone wrong. So I did what I do best. I kept my mouth shut and watched. Waited for Wade to stumble off, laughing about old laws and blood debts. And then I made my move. Stepped out of the shadow, heavy boots crunching the dirt, and pulled a pouch of silver out of my saddlebag. "3 times what you're owed, Wade," I said. "Take it and get gone." He blinked, greedy, suspicion flickering across his mean face. "You buying trouble, McCrae?" "Reckon I'm settling it," I told him, my voice flat as a winter plane. He spit at my boots but took the coins. Men like him always do. "She ain't got papers. She ain't worth the bother," he muttered. But I didn't answer. I was already at Cassie's side, sawing through the rope. Her skin was raw and red, but she didn't flinch, not even when the strands dropped and she slumped forward like all the bones had gone out of her. I offered my hand. She looked at it for a long moment. No fear, no trust, just a slow kind of acceptance. Sometimes you reach the end of hope, and all you got left is the habit of going on. I helped her onto my old mule. Wade yelled after us about curses and contracts, but his voice faded quick. Nobody followed. Nobody ever does when trouble's got a price. We rode out, past the dying lights of Silver Bluff, down a ribbon of trail that cut through greasewood and silence. Cassie didn't speak till we were a good mile past the last porch lantern. When she finally did, her voice was so thin I barely caught it. "Are you going to sell me to someone else?" "No," I said, "not now, not ever." She nodded like it was the answer she expected, but not the one she trusted. "You gonna hit me if I fall asleep?" "No, ma'am." A long time passed. The stars came out, cold and indifferent, and Cassie clung to the mule with her arms wrapped tight around herself. I led her to my place, if you could call it that, a cabin slouched against a hill, porch sagging, chimney crumbling, but it was quiet, and it was mine. I gave her bread, cheese, water cold from the well, sat her at my table and said nothing more. She ate slow, like she was expecting the food to vanish any second. When she whispered, "Thank you," I just nodded. Didn't trust myself to speak. I left her a clean shirt, a basin and towel by the hearth, and sat out on the porch so she could wash away the stink of Wade Fenwick's misery. Sometimes a man's got to let silence do the talking. When I came back in, she'd crawled into the big bed and fallen asleep, one fist tangled in the old quilt like she was bracing for a fight. I lay down on my cot with my hat over my eyes, listening to the creak of the fire, the slow, steady breaths of a girl learning how to sleep again. That first night passed with no screams, no fists, no slamming doors, just quiet. Funny what passes for peace in a world like ours. Mornings after that settled into a rhythm, cautious, careful, but real. Cassie woke early, moving through the house like a ghost afraid to stir up memories. She swept, fed the hens, wiped the windows. I kept to my chores, mending, hauling, not saying much. Didn't need to. Sometimes kindness is just leaving a door unlocked or half a loaf of bread on the table. A few days in, I left wildflowers on the porch. Didn't mean much by it. Just figured she might like some color after all that gray. She found me behind the barn that evening, kneeling by Martha's grave, my late wife. Cassie laid those flowers there, didn't say a word, but her hand brushed mine on the way up, and I felt something shift. A small thing, maybe, but the kind you carry for years. We kept going, like two souls circling the same fire, neither one quite sure when to speak or what to share. I taught her to ride, to shoot, not so she'd hurt anyone, just so she'd never be helpless again. She listened, learned quick, never asked about my past. Guess she saw enough shadows in my eyes to know when not to pry. But peace never lasts long out here. One afternoon, I spotted a pair of riders kicking up dust on the horizon. My gut twisted when I saw who it was. Rufus Blackwood, sharp-dressed, slick-tongued lawyer from back east, and Clint Fenwick, Wade's cousin, and a mean son of a gun, if there ever was one. They dismounted like they owned the place. Blackwood smiled cold. "We've got papers, Mr. McCrae, legal and proper. This girl belongs to Clint until further notice. We're prepared to buy back your trouble and save us all the headache." I stood my ground, hand close to my hatchet. "She's not for sale." Clint sneered, eyeing Cassie where she hovered in the doorway. "You think you can keep her? Law's law, Jonah." "I've seen your kind of law," I said. "You got 3 seconds to get off my land." They left, but not before Blackwood promised, "We'll be back, and next time the law comes with us." Cassie was shaking. "They'll bring more men," she whispered. "What if the sheriff sides with them?" I met her gaze for the first time, real, steady, like I was making a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. "Let them come," I said. You're not going back, not while I can stand." That night, we didn't sleep much. I sat by the window, cleaning my rifle, Cassie curled in the corner with my old quilt-like armor. Every sound outside made my shoulders tense. Out here, you learn to smell trouble on the wind. Sure enough, they came back past midnight. Blackwood, Clint, and a third man, tall and wiry, with a gun strapped low on his hip. No lanterns, no talk this time. Just the crunch of boots on gravel. "Cassie, get inside, lock the back door," I said. She hesitated, then obeyed. I stepped out onto the porch, rifle steady. Clint called out, "Jonah, one last chance to be smart." I didn't answer. Blackwood hissed, "The girl's ours now, no more deals." The third man lifted his rifle, but I fired first, shot wide, just to make a move. Chaos exploded. Clint lunged at me with a pipe, Blackwood drew a pistol, and the stranger tried to circle behind. Cassie screamed from inside. I blocked Clint's swing with the rifle, felt the shock run up my arm. Blackwood fired wild, missed, but close enough to singe my coat. I took a hit to the shoulder, spun, and knocked Clint cold with the rifle butt. Blackwood made for the house, grabbed Cassie by the arm, yanked her down the steps. She fought like a wildcat. He slapped her hard, spit flying. That's when something in me snapped. I charged, drove a broken fence post into Blackwood's back, heard him scream. The third man swung at me, caught me across the brow, but I kept coming, fists and fury and desperation all mixed up together. Cassie, bloody-lipped and shaking, grabbed a lamp and smashed it into Clint's face, sending him stumbling into the dust. When the dust settled, Blackwood was groaning in the dirt. Clint sprawled out cold, the stranger scrambling for his horse. I stood over them, bleeding, breathing like a bull, and spat. "She's not property. Not yours, not mine, not anybody's." Neighbors must have heard the ruckus. By dawn, half the county had gathered. Old May Hatcher with bread, Eli Rogers with lumber, even folks I hadn't spoken to in years. They didn't say much, just left what help they could and nodded at me, like maybe I'd finally done something worth their respect. Blackwood and Clint came back once more, desperate, humiliated, waving their fake papers and their bruised pride. Cassie stepped onto the porch before I could, stood tall, eyes steady, and slapped Blackwood so hard his hat flew off. "I'm not yours," she said, "and I never was." They looked at me, waited to see if I'd back down. I just stood there, empty hands, full heart. They left in silence, dust swirling around their boots, and I knew, in that moment, the world had shifted. No happy endings out here. Not really. Just a little more room to breathe, a little less to regret. Cassie sat beside me on the porch as the sun went down, her bruises fading, her voice steady. "You were brave," she said. "So were you." I watched the stars blink on and felt something loosen in my chest. "We're not running anymore." That's the way it was. And I'd do it all again, just to see a little hope grow where there wasn't any before.